Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen Logan. I'm the CEO of Privy Seal. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm here to tell you a little bit more about the IOPSA seal and how you can use it and why you should. And before I do that, I'm afraid I have to take you through the COVID slides. So hopefully I can do that here. So apparently we have to tell you what you already know, which is to always wear a mask when out in public, to wash your hands with soap or an alcohol-based sanitizer, avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth with unwashed hands, avoid close contact with people who are sick, cover or cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow or a tissue when, and throw that tissue away in a bin, and clean and disinfect frequently using surfaces, used surfaces and objects. I hope that was clear. And with your permission, I'll go on to the first slide, which is really just to let you know that Privy Seal is widely used. We are used in South Africa by the architects. They add their seal, that's called a SACAP seal, the South African Council for the Architectural Professions. That seal is added to drawings that are submitted to local authorities. And the people getting the plans are able to then scan the QR code and go through to a certificate where they are able to view the contact details or especially the name of the architectural person submitting the plan and see if they really are who they say they are, so they can accept the plans. We do something similar for the quantity surveyors, mechanical engineers. We've got professional accountants, business accountants, different IT professional bodies. So it's quite widely used. We also do it for the South African Qualifications Authority, UNESCO, and then qualification bodies like University of KwaZulu-Natal and IMM and Henley and others. So what we try to do is to make your membership of IOPSA visible, and to do that in a way that increases trust in your abilities as from a company perspective, because all of your companies are members. So it's all really about proving your expertise to do your work and making that very visible. I'm sure you prove it in your work, but this is another way to do it. So we are trying to help with this problem of qualification fraud, where people are going about pretending to have expertise that they don't have. So this is an example Privy Seal, or it's a seal that's issued by IOPSA using our platform. The key part of the seal is this QR code, as well as the date and time stamp. So as you can see, it's got the IOPSA logo on the left. It's got the name of the company in black in the middle. The category of membership is above it in blue. And then below the date and time stamp and the QR code. So if I could invite you, I'm not sure how many of you have ever used a QR code scanner before, but on very many smartphones, it's built in. So I know on the Apple, if you scan up from the bottom, if you just flick up from the bottom, you get to the QR code scanner. And I know in many Samsung, it's built into the camera. So all you do is you open up your camera or you get to the QR code scanner, and then you can scan that QR code. And what should happen is it should open it up on your smartphone, on your cell phone. So that's the first way that you can see this particular member's certificate of registration or membership certificate with IOPSA. And the idea is that you use this seal on your invoices, your quotes, if you can find a place for them, on your email footers, on your website if you've got, on your Google listing if you've got that, or on frankly any media that you use. Because it will enable whoever it is that's viewing that document to go through and check your membership status. Now, I'm not sure how many of you managed to see it or get it to get onto your phone with using the QR code. But you can then share that. So it's a very easy way of sharing the certificate that you get to. And there's a little block with a arrow, and you click on that, and it allows you to share it on WhatsApp or send it by SMS even, or whatever. So if anybody ever questions you and says, are you an IOPSA member? In the event that that happens, this would be a very easy way to show them, to prove that you are. So every one of these seals, your one in particular, will have a different URL, a different link. And that's that link that you use to share the seal and certificate. So you can use the QR code, but you can also use the link at the bottom. So you'll see that that's an example. So your one will be unique, and you'll be able to embed that into your email very easily, and will pull the seal through into your email. That's what this particular membership certificate looks like. And you will have got to that, some of you at least, having scanned the QR code. But you can also hyperlink the seal to that certificate. The certificate has a separate URL. It's basically the same, except that one word is different in it. So it's very easy to do, and we have guides online to show you how to do it. But basically, it will take you about, well, it should take you between 1 and 2 minutes to do. All right, so this is probably the most important part of the presentation. You know, we are trying to get across the value proposition for you to do this within your company. Most of the organizations that we work with are, you know, they're large professional licensing bodies, and they have understood the value proposition about making qualifications visible, making expertise visible. But in this particular case, what we're trying to say to you is, ideally, you should be doing this in order to build trust and confidence, to prove that your company is currently a member of IOPSA. So those two things really will start to work together. And what we found is, over a course of time, more and more members will use it. They will see it as a competitive advantage. So the people who are not IOPSA members, those companies who are not IOPSA members, will start to stand out because they don't have a way to prove that they are IOPSA members. And that will make it easier for the public to see, oh, okay, well, this one's a member of IOPSA, there's recourse here. These people have taken the time and trouble to, you know, register, and they clearly know what they're doing, and they've got a higher standard of work. So that's the idea behind it. So your IOPSA seal will only display if you're currently in good standing as a member of IOPSA. And that way it protects your membership, because people can't pretend to be members when they're not. So as I've mentioned, it's about proving genuine expertise, and it's very easy to use. And I think that's the biggest difference between what we do and what other organizations out there do. It's extremely easy. So if you use Gmail or Outlook, in you can go to the email signature editor, and it really is very quick to do. Some people can do it in 15 seconds. Others may take a couple of minutes, but it's really not complicated. And the wider you use it, the more you use the seal, the more people will see it. And so eventually, IOPSA might end up being able to do advertising and marketing around use an IOPSA member. And this is how you can tell they are an IOPSA member. They've got the seal, an IOPSA seal. So we think that this is going to be quite an important thing going forward, where people be able to easily, at a glance, be able to distinguish who's an IOPSA member. And if you guys are all doing your work at a good level, then it will become a standard of trust. And people say, well, I only want to deal with an IOPSA member, and hopefully turn away those plumbers who are not. So that's the kind of the hard edge of what we do. We actually are promoting a particular standard of work, and we hope that that's, you know, a promise that you guys are delivering on, we imagine you must be. And really, it's about getting more and more people to work to that standard, and have the resulting public say, wow, I need to work with, if this guy's not available, I better use an IOPSA member, because I know that that's a standard of trust that we can live with. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm happy to talk about all the other things that might come up, but Byron, if that's okay, I think we could open it up to questions.
The chat is open, so if people do have questions, they're more than welcome to post it in the chat, and as they come through, I can read them to you.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting for any questions to come through, let me explain that Privy Seal has been around for 6 years, that we do work now internationally with bodies all over the world, that we tend to find that there's a immediate adoption of the seal, and basically people start using it, especially the early adopters, what are called the technology savvy people. They start to use it immediately. They see the value proposition quickly. And then what happens is there becomes a tipping point where people start saying, we need this. It protects us. It gives us a competitive advantage. And then they start to really use it. And we see that that happens at a different time in each industry. Sometimes it's very quick. In 6 months, everybody is using it. And sometimes it's very slow. The mechanical engineers, for example, have taken a long time to roll out. But we find that irrespective of the amount of time it takes, there's a lot of value add because it just builds that recognition and trust. So we do this for the Institute of Directors, for the business accountants, for professional accountants, and we're finding more and more interest in this, particularly in South Africa, because of the qualification fraud. Although qualification fraud is a problem all over the world. So we hope this adds a lot of value, and I'm sure you'll have some questions, even if they're not today. Feel free to let IOPSA know what your questions or concerns or issues are. There may be, and we've got answers. So we can gladly engage with you on any of the kind of issues that people have. In terms of data security and other things like that, you can rest assured we take that very, very seriously. And our service has been tested for over 6 years by very large organizations.
And Stephen, is there
Sorry, Steve, did you?
Considerable sort of qualification fraud? I mean, is it something that's really out there that actually does happen? I think we tend to see plumbers advertising that they are and they aren't. And I get the fact why we want to go this route, but is it really prevalent out there, across all sectors, from, accounting to engineering to plumbing, electrical? Is it something that is really, a concern for the consumer and everybody else?
Well, I mean, it's easy to just say yes, but what we find is that it's different in different industries. It is a very wide problem, but it affects different industries differently. So some of the industries that we've gone into, for example, mechanical engineering, they don't see it as much of a problem. The biggest problem that they're trying to sort out by using Privy Seal is POPI. Because POPI allows their members to share their seal and certificate and prove who they are without the public or person having to go to the membership body. So they really use Privy Seal mainly in that context. But we find, for example, with professionals of every kind, including particularly architects, it's a huge problem. The architects to have the problem to the degree that it's really costing them money. People are actually pretending to be a different firm of architects. So I have no idea the extent of the problem in the plumbing industry. But there's no doubt that there will be people who are not registered, who are, either self-taught or haven't gone through a process of, learning and taking the time to get registered with our OPSA, because it's a big investment, right? There's a cost involved. I mean, I'm not sure what the OPSA fees are, but the reality is it's a costly thing to do everything to a higher standard. And many people are just not up to that. So they drop the membership if they ever had it. And they trade on basically their goodwill, and they pretend to be qualified if they may or may not know what they're doing. The problem, of course, is recourse. There's no recourse for the member of the public, because they
Stephen,
think they're dealing.
To jump in there, but we have
Sure.
a chap was a member 10 years ago. He's put it on his letterheads and his yellow pages ads and whatever. We've got guys that create their own logo, and just use different words. So that there's a huge amount of that we find. And then our issue comes in is when complaints are lodged, the perception from the consumer is they've used the right guy, obviously didn't verify. And then it becomes our issue in terms of going back to the consumer saying, well, we're sorry, we've got no recourse to this individual. And they'll say, but, he's got your logo. And, unfortunately, in today's environment, anybody with a little bit of savvy can download and copy and paste and put things on. So, from our side, it becomes a massive challenge. And I think it's also consumer awareness. I don't know how far you are with the consumer awareness in terms of that, because right at the get-go is where it is. If you get 3 different prices and one is way lower than the other one, start asking the question. So I think from my OPSA and PRV's point, we're going to that, consumer drive to make sure and verify. And the same principle would apply, obviously from your side, is to be able to market it in such a way that check this,
Yes, look, I mean, the professional accountants.
And then, you've got the confidence that there is recourse and everything.
Look, you said it. I mean, basically, the professional accountants were doing very expensive radio advertising. I think they had committed to a significant budget. And they were saying, go and only use a professional accountant. They have really high standards. And we said to them, how on earth are they going to tell that this person's a professional accountant? So, at the end of the day, you can't rip off a Privy Seal. It's got the current date and time on it. It says privyseal.io and the URL if ever you click through to the certificate. And it is gaining in, people are starting to see these things everywhere. So for us, it's a big deal to get people to use it, because the more people that see it, the more that will recognize it. We've got one client where so far they've got to 36 million views of their Privy Seals. But obviously it really differs from industry to industry. So yeah, I think the reality is that it's becoming very important. I don't think it was always perceived as a significant problem. There's some industries that are riddled with this as a problem. And certainly from a, if there's time, if you guys are happy to, I'm happy to tell you the story of the Estate Agency Affairs Board.
Yeah, Stephen, look, we've got until 20 past. I think the more the attendees hear about these real life stories, because I think it does come to the fore in terms of maybe some of the ladies and gents that are sitting here are saying, what difference can it make? So I think anything that you can share in terms of how it's been positive or received, maybe just instills the the get up and go and let's get this going, protect our brand, protect our industry. So yes, please go ahead.
All right. Well, I have to be careful how I tell you this story. Yes.
There is one question here where they're asking about the registration fees.
There's no cost for using Privy Seal. It's incorporated in your fees. I'm not sure if Officer will charge a levy. I know that the quantity surveyors charge a levy of 20 Rand a year. But most of the bodies that we deal with either charge a small levy like that, 20 Rand a year, or otherwise incorporated in their membership fees. Let me tell you the story. I have to be careful because we worked with the Estate Agency Affairs Board for 3 years, and the estate agents were using it. Took a long time before a significant number of estate agents used it. We got up to about 28,000 estate agents using it, of a total of 36,000. So it was one of our most successful clients. And we had all the big brands using it. We had many small companies using it. In fact, you can tell from 28,000, the bulk of the estate agents were using it. And then, unfortunately, we had a new CEO come into the Estate Agency Affairs Board, and we were assured by her team that they had renewed our contract. And for 5 months, we provided our service at free, effectively, because we couldn't invoice, because our service 3-year term had come to an end, and they refused to pay us until the new contract had been signed by the CEO. The new contract had been agreed to by the ExCo, but the CEO didn't want to sign it for some reason, which we still have no idea about. Anyway, we begged and pleaded, and did our utmost to try and get the contract signed, as did all the people within the Estate Agency Affairs Board, only to find the CEO was just not interested. And so after 5 months, we had to cancel the service. It was an absolute nightmare. So we get emails from estate agents all over the country, particularly at the time of the registration for their Fidelity Fund certificate, asking where is their EAAB Privy Seal. I can tell you it was extremely well received by estate agents. Initially, of course, there were questions, and people hated the Estate Agency Affairs Board, had always had a very difficult time getting their Fidelity Fund certificate from them. And it was really a grudge thing. They thought to themselves, this seal, why on earth would I display it? It's just, another thing I have to do for the EAAB. And we had to get over that. And I remember going with the actual former CEO to all of these big events to tell about the value of the seal. And it took about 6 months before it really started to get to a tipping point where people realized the value proposition. But wow, did they use it afterwards? And when the EAAB failed to renew the contract, there was an absolute outcry in the industry. And we realized that it was a very positive story for us, even though the CEO had failed to sign the new contract. I don't know if you know, but the Estate Agency Affairs Board is under forensic audit, and most of their senior management have left. In fact, even junior managers have left. So it's a really problematic institution. So we don't feel at all bad about no longer having them as a client, although we are often approached by people within the sector asking how we can potentially work with them and provide a similar service. I really believe this will be of huge value to you guys. We're all about increasing trust and recognition. The public needs a way to be able to determine who is a trustworthy service provider. And we do it in a way that is, easy. Our motives are good here. We've been working in the industry or in different industries for a long time. It does take a while to break into a new industry, but it's going to be a competitive advantage for everybody that uses it.
And this is, as I say, Stephen, when, submission of documents and quotations and things like that, it just adds and bulks that up in terms of that. I think, whenever we're submitting a quotation or something, it's trying to get in there that others don't, to have that explanation as to why. And as I've said earlier, 90% of our complaints come through from people that have got hold of the so-called plumber, believing that he is what he is. And then there's a challenge or there's a problem, and now there's just no accountability. There's absolutely nothing that we can do because he's not a member. Maybe he's registered, with PIRB, but invariably most of the time is that, the consumer is just not aware and says, well, I thought I was using the right guy. And sometimes it's very heartbreaking in terms of some of the stories that we get where people have invested their money, saved it up, want to get a decent bathroom done. It's taking them 5 years to save the money. And then all of a sudden they're left with not only a broken down bathroom and, you know, inconvenience and everything else, but it's now trying to find the money to go and rectify this. And, you know, again, as you know, it pulls down the name of the plumbing industry, because it's the plumber, you know, it's, you know, we all get painted the same brush. And I think that anything that we can do to try and separate ourselves and move with the times. I think, you know, a couple of years ago, this may not have been relevant, but with unemployment and COVID and all of the things going on, it is more relevant, because we have more individuals going into industry that were unemployed. And it's through those circumstances that they start that business. And as we know, it is a challenge running any business, but it's to try and get all those checks and balances and tick boxes done. And I think anything that's going to give you an edge in terms of you know, getting that job to be verified and get that tick box done, any advantage in this day and age is one that you can't leave on the table.
No, what we found is that SAQA is one of our major clients here, the South African Qualifications Authority. And, you know, they really believe that qualifications are critical. You have to protect them. And if people are pretending to have qualifications they don't have, it's a big problem for the people who do have those qualifications, because it undermines your qualifications. People are pretending to have, you know, skills they don't have. So it affects every industry.
Yeah, that's covered in our Consumer Protection Act. I think it's something that doesn't come in as well, that the Consumer Protection Act states very clearly that you can't be something that you're not. And I think they take it very seriously in terms of individuals posing as something that they're not, and the ramifications of that are quite severe. So I think when we collectively put all of these things together, we've got the protection, we've just got to be able to use it.
You need a way to distinguish, and that's what Privy Seal is all about. Well, it's been a pleasure being here. We look forward to supporting you in your journey to make your expertise visible. And we're looking forward to working with you as an industry.